going to do that now. What we're going to do now is we're going to have quite an interesting session, actually, and what I've been looking forward to. And that is around one of the local digital MHCLG funded projects, the Income Management System Alpha project. And today with DXW, we've got a number of representatives from Barnsley, Huntingdonshire and Dorset, supported by their sort of main supplier, DXW, to run panel discussion, an opportunity to ask questions, to look at that particular project, and then to actually focus in on how the digital collaboration between those three organisations plus supplier came to pass and happen in local government. So I'm going to be here to sort of monitor the chat and collate questions, but I'd like to hand over now to Isabel Kreutz, Head of Strategic Services at DXW. Isabel, over to you. I shall now mute myself.
Thanks, Nick. So before I start, I'm going to just let the team introduce themselves. I think Richard's going to go first.
Hello, everybody. I'm Richard Kingston. I'm IT Manager at Barnsley Council, and I look after our software development team.
Tony?
Hi, I'm Tony Evans, the Assistant Director for Transformation at Huntingdonshire District Council, and I look after trying to get us ready for tomorrow and change the council and our IT.
Thanks, and Glenn.
And hi everybody, my name is Glenn Conroy, and I'm an ICT Operations Manager at Dorset Council.
Great, thank you. So as Nick mentioned, I'm from DXW and we were the delivery partner working on the IMS project during the discovery and the alpha. And I provided the delivery support to the team throughout the alpha, so I worked closely with them on that stage of the project. And rather than a traditional presentation, we're going to do Q&A, and we're going to do it in 3 parts. We're going to start by looking back to where we started, then we're going to look at where we are now, and the final part is going to look at sort of what's coming next for the project. So we'd welcome your questions sort of throughout, and you can put them in the chat, and Nick's going to collate them, and at the end of each section we can have a discussion. So I'm going to start with Richard, and he's going to kick us off by telling us a bit about where we started and a bit about why we did the project. So Richard, can you start by telling us what an IMS Alpha is, please?
I can. So IMS, it sounds a little silly, but IMS, Income Management System. It's a little piece of middleware, if you like, that sits between council finance systems, back office systems or line of business systems, and banks. So if, for example, a customer is to pay an amount off their council tax, a transaction will come in from the bank, and IMS will handle that transaction to put the right updates in a financial system, in a ledger, but also update the relevant back office systems to say this person's paid a chunk off their council tax, don't send them a letter and remind them to do that. Or there's all kinds of functionality built into that income management system as well. So if a refund's issued, for example, it'll handle that as well. It'll tell the bank to resend some money back, and it'll also update the relevant back office system to say deduct this amount and update the ledgers to say move this amount out as well. Including lots of other bits of extra functionality in that system as well too. If money has to move from one, say, cost centre to another, you can sort of allocate that around and give all the reasoning, and it provides a full audit trail. So in that sense, it's middleware when we talk about income management system. Reason we say alpha, and the reason most of our Twitter hashtags at the minute are IMS Alpha, is that we're running through the alpha phase of an MHCLG funded project. And that's to see whether or not there is benefit in us sharing a single income management system for all councils. So there are 408 in the UK, 383, I think, in England, and we're all managing income. One way or another, we'll all have slightly different processes and different ways of doing it, but the act of managing income is much the same. And we're all doing that in our own way with our own systems, potentially. There's some benefit in us looking at one shared system, maybe. So the MHC LG funded project is around can we do that? And of course, none of us as councils are in competition with each other, so it makes sense to look at economies of scale around that. This follows a discovery phase. We spent some time before Christmas, actually we finished that just after Christmas, looking at sort of researching the idea, whether or not there was a market for it, an appetite for it amongst councils. We've spent the alpha phase just now testing ideas around how we might do it, and then we're hoping to get into a beta next to actually start to do it. So we've researched, we've tested, and we're hoping to start doing next.
Oh, thank you. That's a really clear description and a good overview of why we are where we are. So are you able to tell us a bit more about what led to the project itself, please?
Okay, so back in 2017, in Barnsley, we'd had the same incumbent supplier for about 10 years. We'd been tendering regularly and going through the whole procurement process, but the same supplier kept coming out on top as being the best fit for our need. We were about 6 months before the end of the current contract, ready for the next renewal, and the negotiations just weren't working out. We couldn't get to a point where we were comfortable with the what next. With only 6 months to go, we didn't feel we had enough time to procure an alternative system and do all of the migration that comes with that, because as you can imagine, an income management system is sort of tied really tightly into a lot of different things, and it's pretty important because all of our income's in it. So we were very lucky that we had our own in-house development team, so we decided to kind of build our way out of the problem, and we spent 6 months doing that. We pulled an agile team together, worked through sort of Scrum practices and developed a solution, and we took the opportunity to fix a lot of the workarounds that our finance teams had and had been working with the incumbent for the last 10 years. So they sort of highlighted to us the things that were causing them difficulties, and we sort of took the opportunity to fix as many of those as we could. It worked. We were very, very happy with it. We got it launched in the 6 months. We managed to get rid of and shut down the old system with a couple of weeks to spare, which was pretty good. Did a lot of data migration as well. So we took all the 6 years plus current and got that across. And we ran it for about a year. It only took a few months for support calls to drop to zero, which was fantastic, because before, when we had the incumbents, my team would spend a lot of time fixing things that our finance team had done that they couldn't necessarily undo themselves. They needed technical help to undo some of these things. So seeing the support calls drop to zero was great, because a lot of the things we'd put in for the workarounds meant that they could now do a lot of stuff themselves, whereas before they had to either come to us, or even worse, we had to go out to the supplier. So as well as reducing all the support calls, we managed to save around 50k per year as well on the license cost that we were paying at the time. So that was pretty good. We blogged about it. We were feeling pretty pleased with ourselves because we'd done such a good job as a development team. It was probably one of our biggest developments at the time. We blogged about it, said what we'd done, offered even to share the software with other councils if we thought it might benefit them. And everything kind of came from there.
Thanks, Richard. I'm sure some of the context and story probably resonates with some of the experience of some of the people on the call. But so can you tell us what relationship the project had with the local digital fund? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So at the time I blogged, it was quite fortuitous actually, because the local digital fund was, it had had its first round of funding and there were projects already in train. One of them was a project that North East Lincolnshire Council were running with the Gov.uk Pay product team. And the essence of that was to try and see, or to discover, whether Gov.uk Pay, whether take-up of it could be increased in local government. So it was obviously been used quite a lot in central government at the time, but not so much in local government. As they were looking at that and looking at, a similar sort of thing that we're doing with IMS around economies of scale, could we roll it out and get a lot of benefit from that? They found that they started to realise that there was a gap between Gov.uk taking payments and councils receiving it as income in a way that they could reconcile it and deal with it. And then, up popped my blog saying, hey, we've just built an income management system, and perhaps it looked like the thing that could slot into the gap there. We ended up having a number of conversations with NELC and the Gov.uk Pay team. We had a couple of sort of virtual chats. We ended up hosting NELC and GovPay product team in Barnsley. They came up and held a bit of a workshop with us as part of their discovery project. We held our first real ever show and tell as a council. We'd never really done it before. So we held a show and tell of our income management system product and showed what it could do and how it might work. And we ended up traveling down to London to see MHCLG as well and have conversations with them. We ultimately concluded that there was probably some value in us running a discovery around, could we integrate the product that we built with gov.uk Pay and have a bit of a holistic solution, if you like, that could take payments, pass that through as income, and then, you know, finance teams in councils be able to deal with that and reconcile. And that's really how we got started. Yeah, that's really how we got started.
Oh, thank you. And you've already mentioned a little bit about the discovery, but is there anything else you want to sort of tell us about what happened during discovery and sort of who else was involved?
Well, when we met MHCLG, of course, the local digital fund is all about, it's run by the local digital collaboration unit, which by the name kind of gives a clue. The idea is to build up collaboration between councils and break down barriers. And that's certainly what happened for us in Barnsley. We were used to just working as a software development team in our own boundaries. The work we did with NELC was the first real, as I say, working in the open that we'd done, the first show and tell, talking to people outside of Barnsley. Speaking with MHCLG and the idea that we might bid for funding in their second round of discovery funding, we ended up getting out our little black book and looking for as many councils as we could to join us. We ended up partnering with Sheffield Council, Allerdale, Cherwell, South Northamptonshire, North East Links and Huntingdonshire. We've made an application for funding in their second round. On the 12th of September 2019, we were told we'd been successful. And then we sort of panicked because we'd never run a discovery before and didn't really know what we were doing. So we spent the first 10 weeks of MHCLG's money really and time figuring out, running a tender really to find a company to help us run the discovery and sort of teach us really what to do. It's the first time we'd ever done it. We appointed DXW, we appointed you, Isabel, as our discovery partner. And working with you guys, we got together as a bunch of councils and off we went.
Oh, thank you. Hopefully that discovery is something that you can repeat again. So I think we're going to move on to the next part, but Nick, have you collected any questions at this point, or do we want to kind of open up for questions before we move on to Tony for questions for Richard?
I do not have any. I don't have the opportunity to hold up my questions.
Spent a lot of time on that. Yeah.
Well, as you can see, it's got. In fact, it's got a bit of my lunch on it, which brings us back to the beginning of the session. But no, but I guess what we could do is open it up to the floor, and if you would like to unmic yourself and ask a question of Richard, I'm sure Richard would be very happy to field those questions. Does anyone have any questions for Richard before we move on? Speak now or forever hold your peace. You got away with it, Richard.
Yay!
That's it. Well done. You come through unscathed.
Fantastic.
Now let's see if your your co-panelists can come through unscathed. I'm guessing not at that.
Okay,
Isabel.
Let's continue then. Thanks, Nick.
I should move myself.
When Richard was talking, he kept on mentioning sort of our relationship with MHCLG, and it's worth mentioning that Eglė is on the call, and she's been sort of a fundamental part of our journey as well, I think. So I can see that she's there. But Tony, now it's your turn. So Tony's going to talk to us more about where we are now and how we got there. So can you start by telling us what happened after discovery ended, please?
So at Huntingdonshire, we're involved in the discovery briefly. We hosted a workshop, and then after the discovery ended, we we sort of stayed in touch with Barnsley because we're really interested in income management systems, because we quite want to replace ours, actually, is the honest truth. So nothing but enlightened self-interest has driven me to this point. And then we were talking with them about going for alpha funding and what that would look like. And we decided to work with others and with Dorset, who came along as well, to create an alpha submission to try and take Barnsley's sort of nascent software that we knew worked, and it worked for them, to try and move this on to a place where it would work for many councils at once. And that was sort of how we got to it. And then we went back to MHCLG with an alpha submission. That was the heady days of being able to use public transport. We all went down to London and presented with sort of a slide pack and some impassioned speeches, which apparently won the day, and we got alpha funding for that.
Cool, thanks, Tony. So I've noticed when Richard was telling the story, and you've continued, that the partners have changed since we started Discovery and then moved on to Alpha. Can you sort of tell us how that worked in practice?
And yeah, it's an interesting one to see how the project participants have changed as we've gone along, and the sort of the varying roles and responsibilities has changed. And it's like Barnsley is sort of very much key to this, and DXW have also provided amazing support for how we do this. But as we went from Discovery to Alpha, we said that the problem had changed, and we needed different people with different skills to create the best team to move forward. In the Discovery, we were sort of fact-finding and wanting a very broad range of people to tell us their experiences. In the Alpha, we needed a skill set that was much more focused, and interested parties that knew about how to take something and productize it. And Barnsley have continued to lead and be instrumental in this. They have the code base, they have the team that built it. Dorset then Glenn got in touch with Richard after watching the final show and tell of the Discovery, and sort of said, we've done much the same, and they have their own software development capability there, and so they've come on board. HTC, like I said, massive self-interest is my motivating factor, and my experience on building products in the private sector sort of, I think, is what kept me in the team. And that is how we've changed and morphed the team to provide a better sort of skill set to the challenges we were going to face.
Cool, thank you. So now on to quite an important question. Can you tell us about the scope of the Alpha phase, please? And
I think this is where it gets really interesting, in that we essentially already had a system. So we weren't in the Alpha, we weren't trying to go from Discovery and a bunch of user stories into a working system. We already had a working system. So that wasn't necessarily our problem. Our problem was to understand how we took a thing that was used by one council, running on-prem, supported by their development team who built it, and turning that into an offer that could be consumed by multiple councils in multiple different stages of sort of like technological capability that they have. And so the scope for us was very much focused around like, what would an ecosystem look like? What does the diversity of needs from different councils mean? Like, some could consume an open source code base that you could just pick up a Git repo and get working. For others, I've just spoken Swahili for all of the knowledge that they have of how to do that. And it was trying to understand how we could create a meaningful and viable offer that would actually be consumable by all 300 and whatever of us that are district councils. And so the focus was filling some product gaps. Let's not downplay that. Barnsley, in their wisdom, no longer deal with face-to-face payments and cash. However, not all of us are in that enlightened position, and some of us still need to deal with that. So we had a product gap to fix. Also, Barnsley's digital team are very heavily linked to their finance team and able to support it with code changes. And that's not necessarily the true elsewhere. So we needed to look at these specific feature gaps, but also how would we go beyond where we were? How would we get it to market? And what would the support model and what would a commercial entity need to look like that was able to offer this as a service that was consumable across the piece?
Thanks, Tony. That's a really clear sort of description and quite a detailed alpha as well. So now I want to ask some questions about collaboration, and can you tell us about how you and your partner councils work together, and if COVID circumstances made that harder? Or
Cool. So yeah, we sort of get to the meat on what was headlined as this being about collaboration and working together. And now, ironically, I think COVID has actually helped us work together, because COVID was a massive leveler. We were all on the same place. Nobody went to somebody else's turf. Everything was always virtual, and we didn't have the problem of travel time. It's not like if I wanted to get to Barnsley, that was 8 hours in the car for a 4-day meeting, and I've got to find all 12 hours to do that, because we're a remarkably geographically diverse team. We've got DXW from, actually I have no idea where, London, parts north, holiday cottages in Norfolk, we have Glenn down in Dorset, we have Richard in Barnsley, and me in leafy East Anglia. But it was actually really easy just to go, oh, hey, we'll have the stand up at 9 o'clock every day, and everybody just jumps on and we can all be involved and talk to each other. And there was never any sense that there was anybody more important than anybody else, because we were all on this level playing field of having absolutely no idea how to do it, because we all had to go virtual. But for the specifics, and that led us to use a lot of different tools. We used a lot of mirror boards, the giant mirror board to rule them all, which kept on getting bigger and kept on expanding with extra things. There was the Figma prototyping that we did a lot of, that was really helpful. And then of course, we tried every platform under the sun. We had some Teams meetings, we had some Zoom meetings, we had some Google Meet meetings, we tried Teams live events, like you name it, we tried it. We're pretty bad at presenting on all of them, to be honest, but people still turn up and listen to us. And there were some really comedy moments when we were trying to do a Crazy 8 design session around chip and pin devices that actually ended up, everybody scribbled on pieces of paper in their all individual settings, and then we took pictures of them and uploaded them to a mirror board and then discussed it. And it was actually a really useful way, and it kept everything present more than the old, if we'd all scribbled on whiteboards in person. At least you can zoom in a mirror board and then add an annotation over your very terrible handwriting. So I think it really worked well together as a partnership, and it was all virtual tools, but I don't think it's held us back too much.
Oh, thank you. Are there any sort of particular strengths or weaknesses of sort of collaboration that you want to raise in addition to what you've sort of just said?
So I think our working patterns were interesting and how we fell into this. So the stand-ups worked. Everybody came together when a crisis wasn't averting us. I know I certainly ducked out of a few stand-ups when things like pavement legislation suddenly got through at district councils, and I was like, yeah, I got to go deal with that now. And that sort of led to some of the really good points and the bad points. There was the core of us that were there nearly all the time, most stand-ups, most of the big design sessions, and that meant everybody kept it in their head and really worked well together. But if you missed one of those design sessions, trying to play catch up was really, really hard, because everything had happened in the session and everybody had been there and really interacted. But the documentation sometimes fell a little bit behind. Most of us are doing this on the side of our day jobs, which have been pretty busy. So I think it worked well for a small team, but the people on the periphery, I think, suffered a little bit. I'm not quite sure how to solve that, but I think that's an honest assessment.
Yeah, thank you. I remember at one point when Richard had perhaps 9 projects underway, and it was kind of everybody was in the same position where they were juggling priorities, but somehow managed to deliver them in parallel, which is a really big success. So did you want to mention anything more about remote working, or shall we see if anybody has any questions for Tony before?
I think the one final thing I'd like to sort of say was, as a collaboration, I think it was really interesting how I felt we worked as a consensus. We worked genuinely collaborative. There was no sort of, Barnsley were the lead in that it was their name on it, but most of the decision making really happened as a collaboration between Richard, Glenn, myself, input from DXW to really try and shape this. And that did an odd thing. Like, we actually spent ages trying to nail the scope, and there were multiple sessions that Isabel sort of tried to manhandle all of us towards, like, what is it are we doing? And we all kept on like trying to jump off in multiple different directions because we brought all of these different ideas and knowledges and concepts together. But when we finally stuck it and went, yeah, this is the scope, everybody's got behind that really, really quickly. And I felt we formed and went as a team more than just individual people joining with bits of work. But that did mean we went through the traditional like storming, norming, performing curve. And we got there, and it worked really well at the end, though I think there was a little bit of fatigue creeping in at points when we got to sort of like the end of sprint 3. I think we were all pretty fatigued from everything we'd been through.
Yeah, thank you. So does anybody have any questions for Tony? I don't know if Nick, do you want to hold your sign up again?
Does anyone have any questions?
I'm going to jump in and ask you a question, Tony, if that's okay. So for me, I sort of came into this project with a lot of preconceived ideas about how we do things and the way we do things. And that was very much, I was under the impression that most councils are going to be working in a very similar sort of way. So I went through, and I'm going to say it's the old cliche, but I went through a journey through this project, and I had a lot of different ways of thinking about things, and it really challenged me to start thinking away differently to how we do things, and there are other ways of doing things. So, Tony, did you go through any kind of similar journey through the project?
I think it was interesting to understand that the sector has skinned the cat in so many different ways that is not quite compatible with each other. And I sort of, it was interesting to hear the experiences, but that everybody actually we'd hit the same pain points generally, but we'd solved them slightly differently based on our circumstances. So I think it wasn't an element of a journey there, but I have been very open about my extreme like mercenary self-interest here, is that I literally want a better income management system when I come up to procurement, and I will do anything and everything in my power to mean I can buy a better one.
Cool. So Glenn, actually, I think we're going to move on to you now, and for the final part, we're going to think about sort of the next part of this project and moving forward, which is potentially about new partners as well. So Glenn, are we seeing this new IMS as a model for procuring and consuming services for local government, or something else?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I think as the the session suggests, this again is all about collaboration, and I think the more of us that can all work together and do things together, I think that's only ever going to be a good thing. So there's a lot of talent working in local government, and it feels like by doing this sort of thing and by sharing things amongst ourselves in the sector, it feels like we're taking a little bit more control of how we do things and how we do business, and ultimately how we procure stuff and how we spend the public's money. So, I mean, to me, that feels like a really positive step, rather than more traditional methods. I think for me as well, this is about reuse as well, and as we've already mentioned, sort of harvesting the economy of scale. So if we can do things once in the sector and then we can all share things and we can all reuse things, I think, yeah, we're all gaining from the work we're doing together. So, to me, that's much more of an efficient way of working. And, like I say, the collaboration bit really resonates with me as well.
Great, thank you. And can you tell us what is it in store for the future for the IMS product and sort of the next part of the project as well?
So yes, Rich, you're going to need to get a new hashtag because it turns into IMS beta. So I think the next step is, we've been talking to Eglay about moving on to the next steps and moving into beta. I think we've been all talking about getting the band back together. So, getting us all back together, working to move on to the next steps. The next steps are, as Tony said, so yes, at this stage, what we've done is said, yes, that Barnsley have a very capable product. We've kind of proven potential architecture and how this can work. I think it's about starting to make this a bit more real and starting to put those plans that we put together through Alpha, starting to put those ideas into practice and proving that they can work. There's still some outstanding gaps as well. So there's a few missing links that we want to start approaching and start trying to fill those gaps. So we've been talking to the GovUK Pay team about the potential for automated telephone payments and things like that. Chip and pin, we've got some ideas on that, but again, we really need to start proving that, some more prototypes. But also, it's about proving this model will work. So, as we've already mentioned, this is potentially a new model of procuring things and ways of working, and so. It's about how this is going to work with the rest of the community, with the rest of the sector. So the customers that are potentially going to be using the system and the partners that are going to help deliver that system as well. So we need to start working out how that's going to work and what take up there is and what interest there is.
Thank you. And on the note of partners and interest, is there opportunity for others to get involved in this? And sort of, if so, what does that opportunity potentially look like?
I hope so, because we can't do it all of ourselves, really. We need some help. More hands make light work and all that. And as the title of the session suggests as well, this is all about collaboration, and the whole principle of this idea is not around the system, but it's building a community around the way that we work and like I say, the reuse of a system. So yes, we need to start building that community of partners, and we need to start building that community of customers as well. So Barnsley, right from the outset have said, we're not interested in being the provider. We're not the supplier here. Yes, it's the product that started with Barnsley, but ultimately, yeah, this is going to take on a life of its own. So yeah, we need partners to make that whole thing work and make the whole concept viable, really. So I think, yeah, if you're interested, then please get in touch. Yeah, Twitter or emails or what have you. But yeah, do get in touch. Be very interesting to get you alongside with working on the next part of the project. And I won't say journey again, I promise.
Thanks, Glenn. So I wondered if sort of Richard, Glenn, or Tony, do you have any sort of final thought you want to share about the project before we again sort of ask if anybody has any questions? Well, I had one actually when you were talking, but and I think from a delivery perspective, I definitely noticed that throughout Alpha, decision making, like collaborative decision making, wasn't hard. It happened with ease. I don't think we ever found a challenge in that space, and that's something we should try to kind of bring forward into the next phase as well. Didn't feel like a barrier at all.
I think the key thing for this was that each of the partners brought their own skills to the table. So Glenn had a lot of experience with income management with the work that they'd done. My team had built the income management system that we were trying to work with. Tony had got all of that product experience and a lot of knowledge around security and sort of architectural experience there. And then Isabel and DXW brought us together and sort of manhandled us into a sort of a structure and an organization that we could get stuff done with. So each of us bringing skills like that worked really well for making sure we were making progress. But the decision making part was relatively straightforward because we could lean on the person or group who had the most experience. It wasn't, I wouldn't sit here saying, oh, Tony, I think that architectural decision is massively wrong, because I don't have the experience that Tony does. And it's very easy for Tony to say, well, actually, this is why it needs to go that way. So yeah, because we came together with all those individual skills, I think that really helped us.
Yeah, definitely. So shall we, Nick, do you want to hold your question sign up for the final time and see if it gets us any sort of good questions in response? Oh, lovely, thanks.
Go on, people, don't be shy. This is a great opportunity to ask this. Oh, Jez has asked. Jez, why don't you unmute so we can start the discussion?
Hi, Nick. I just thought I would save your embarrassment, really, and ask a question. So I was just interested, you said that it started off as being, up at Barnsley, it was on-prem, but is the new product likely to be a cloud-based solution, or is it going to be something that we need to build in on-prem?
So I'll take that one to start with. So the plan is to convert Barnsley's software package to basically an open source, exact licensing model of open source to be determined, and we're talking with a number of the other MHCLG funded projects and other councils around the experience of open source licensing, and that gives you a code base. Then a correctly configured council could just take that code base and run either on-prem or on cloud, but the envisaged is, and part of what we did in the alpha was to come up with a reference architecture for deploying that in the cloud with full security wrap, full management wrap, full deployment and configuration management around that. And that is going to form the pattern for what we believe is going to be the main sort of thing in the beta, which is a managed cloud service with, though the exact level of customization and configuration is to be determined, but the idea is that the core will always remain an open source code, with then a supplier putting the potential for a secret source or managed service wrap on top of that to enable much broader consumption. So we have the design for it to run in the cloud. It's not currently running in the cloud, but that is the next step.
Okay, thanks. And will there be a support package to go alongside it as well?
Yes, we think that in order to get this, and this is one of the sort of the findings in the alpha, in order to make this a sustainable ecosystem that could be consumed by everybody, it needs to have a support package. It needs to be supported. So that is part of what the beta is all about, is bringing in the partnership to create that as a commercially consumable offer.
Thank you.
There's a question here from Dominic asking, what does it look like? Are any of you able to share your screen and actually give our attendees insight into what it actually looks like?
We did talk about doing that, but the issue we have is it's only on premise at the minute, and of course it's full of Barnsley's live data. So I didn't want to risk surfacing some information I shouldn't when this has been recorded. I have shared in the chat a link to the show and tell that North East Lincolnshire hosted for us. So that's where Debbie from our finance team and Zoe from our software development team and me sort of walked through the system for the attendees of that show and tell, and we go through each part of it, from how it handles payments to how it issues refunds and all the various sort of cash handling techniques and what have you. So that's probably the best we've got at the minute for sort of visuals and showing the thing. We are intending at some point, probably through the beta, to put together more of a marketing pack, if you like. That's probably a bad term, but something that shows you visuals. And we have talked about as well including YouTube videos that are more like training courses on a playlist. So here's how you issue a refund. And then of course you'll be able to see all the screens and all the menu options and how that works. And then streaming that, linking them together as a playlist. But the video that I've put in the chat is probably the best we've got at the moment.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Richard. Obviously, Wendy has said, you know, if any of our attendees now or people that sort of see the video want to get involved, how do they go about doing that?
So all of our work is published as openly as we can make it at, forgive the URL, but localgovims.digital. I can't remember how we got to that, but we did. So that's every last one we say it, but that's the URL we've got. There's an email address at the bottom of there. We're on local digital Slack channel. There's an income management channel in there. Of course, email any of us as well, and we're knocking about on Twitter all the time, so catch us on Twitter. I am conscious I have a number of emails in my mailbox that I haven't got back to people on yet, so if you have already messaged me, I will get back to you at some point.
Right, okay, brilliant. And just a quick one, so yeah, Alex Shield here. Sorry if this has been asked before, how do you expect this software to work alongside your accounting software?
Should I take this one?
Go for it, Glenn.
Go for it.
So, yes, I mean, so again, something that came out of Alpha was how we are going to interface in and out of the system. So there was a big requirement that was going to be a need, and ultimately what we've been looking at is configurable outputs. So you can potentially create reports essentially that can be used as export files that then can be configured to be imported into finance applications or Revs and Bens applications or whatever it may be, and the same in reverse as well. So you can configure import files as well, so it can accept an import file to load into the IMS as well.
Brilliant, thank you. And I think potentially, unless anyone would like to unmute their mic and ask a question, unless you've got anything else to cover, Isabel, do you think?
I don't think we have any more to add, unless there are any sort of further comments from the team, but we can obviously take questions at a later date as well via the routes that Richard suggested via the website or Twitter or email.
I'll tell you just quickly, I'll tell you what, I'll ask a quick question, and it's not about what you had for lunch either, but it's, so from each of you, what would be your top tip for peers around collaborating, but also collaborating, I guess, now everyone's going to have to collaborate now remotely. I mean, obviously you've collaborated and you've all been at different ends of the country, but now, you know, people having to collaborate, you know, even if they work for the same organization, because they are, you know, they're remote working. So have you got any sort of, what's your top tip, like your Viz top tip? Sorry to bring in a publication that probably isn't everyone's cup of tea, but, you know, what would be your Viz top tip for collaboration to end on? Richard, first.
For me, it was about rhythm. So I think, as Tony said, we had sort of regular stand-ups in the morning, and then we had regular sessions throughout the week. And I think having that rhythm where you just get in a routine, I think really helped. It wasn't disjointed, and it wasn't a case of, oh right, I've got to get my mind back into IMS way of thinking again because I haven't looked at this for the last week or what have you. So yeah, the big thing for me was having that natural rhythm and that routine, I think.
Thanks, Clem.
All right, my two cents would be, I think meeting management is an interesting thing in this virtual world. I spend too many days 9 till 5 on video calls, so I think there's an element of pacing you have to do. So you need a rhythm, you need that, but you also need to make sure that you have time to work on a thing not on the call, so you can actually get it done. And I think there's elements of meeting management, so 25-minute meetings, not half-hour meetings, so you have the 5 minutes to get a drink and do anything else you need, and then break. No 2-hour meetings without a break. Have that time, and let's acknowledge that we no longer have the non-meeting interactions. It's just literally when you're on a Teams call. So like, have the 5 minutes of chat to start with, where you just talk trash and sort of take the piss out of each other, and have that at the end, and to actually form a relationship that's not purely functional.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, I'd share that one, because I think there were days at the beginning of this where I was having 7 hours worth of meetings, and then I was still expected to do 7 hours worth of work on top, and it was just impossible, and it was getting to the point where I was burning out. So definitely, once we sorted that out, life became a lot easier. But I think for me, the biggie is the tooling. I mean, we were introduced through DXW. They introduced us to Miro, Figma. Slack even, and a lot of these tools before we started this weren't open to us. We couldn't install them, we couldn't connect to them. There were, things were blocked. And none of these things are expensive. Even if we're DMing on Twitter, it doesn't cost us anything. We're using with Figma, I think we're using the free sample license at the moment, the trial license. So you don't have, these tools don't have to be expensive, but once you can get into them and start using them, just being careful not to share anything on there that's, sensitive or whatever. It just opens up a whole new world. I mean, there was one point during Discovery where I was on a train, which I've forgotten what it's like, but I was on a train and we were traveling down to Tony at Huntingdonshire. There was 2 people from DXW on one train, me on another train, doing God knows what speed, and we're all just sat slacking, Miroing, and coming up with the workshop structure for the meeting we were about to have. And it's just so easy to do that when you've got the tools in front of you. Brilliant.
Brilliant. Thanks, Richard. Finally, from you, Isabel.
Yeah, I just got one quick one, and I think for me, it was a multidisciplinary team, but each council brought different skills. We didn't have too many people of the same skill. We had the right skills. So I think Dorset gave us service designer, and Barnsley had a designer, and then Tony brought all of his own skills. But it was a mixture of skills across the 3 councils, and it came together as a single team, which was really, really good actually. That was the best bit for me.
Excellent, thank you very much indeed. So do we have, this is the last call for any of these from anyone else?
Yes, hi. Yes, hello.
Hello, ask a question.
I've got an observation actually, and it came across from actually my past life effectively, where we used to run discovery or scoping workshops, for want of a better description. And it was an interesting observation, and it came out of some of the discussion that happened here, that in many instances, the remote working and working through Teams or whatever mechanism you choose to use actually became almost more effective than a boardroom setting, if you like, because it allowed people to make their comments. They had to be more concise, more focused on the way they express themselves. And the end conclusion was that in some ways, running those meetings in this way became actually more effective. Can people make a observation or response to that?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think sometimes they can be easier, and there's less. I'd say there's less kind of bureaucracy between different levels of seniority. Like you don't know kind of who's more important than whoever, and I think lots of people can contribute in different ways. But sometimes it is hard to stop yourself or your colleagues talking when it still feels kind of rude to stop people, I think, from a meeting perspective. Yeah.
So the screen actually flattens the hierarchy.
I think
I agree as well that, sorry, Tony, go on.
So that happens. But I was going to say, I think there is a great leveler in engagement models. Like too many in sort of past lives, it's either been the report is the engagement model or the meeting. And both of those give particular emphasis to particular characters and personality types. I think the digital landscape has smeared the two together, which means everybody has a mechanic for getting their viewpoint across that can play to their strengths rather than their weaknesses. And I think it is a great hierarchical flattener, because you can just get things thrown in, and collaboration is about, I don't care who comes up with the idea if it's a good idea.
Yeah, it was interesting because feedback at the end was that people in the end actually found it a more positive experience, which was a somewhat of a surprise, when people are so used to collaborating around a table, if you like.
Richard, Glenn, any comments?
I was only going to say that, yeah, I would tend to agree that, yeah, you kind of have to think about what you're going to say a lot more, don't you? I'm always the annoying person in a session or a workshop where I have to get up and draw something and point to stuff, and always the animated one. So yeah, I kind of get that taken away from me. So yeah, I've got to think of new ways of communicating. So yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Paul. Isabel, do you want to say any final words at all from a DXW perspective?
Well, I think this is, I mean, a really enjoyable project. It was quite fun project to be involved in, quite intense at times, but yeah, well done to everybody, and good luck for the next part. I really hope that the partnership grows as well, which I know everybody's keen to happen. And thanks, Nick, for having us. And thanks again to Eglay, who's also there, but we can't see her.
Excellent. Well, what I will do is I shall make sure that this video is available, and of course we will encourage people to go and view the wonderful content that Richard has provided in the chat area, and also encourage people to get involved and to acquire the wonderful outputs from the project. The whole idea is obviously to you know, sort of provide the best quality solutions possible and stop wheel reinvention and all that sort of good stuff. But anyway, I'm going to bid you all farewell. Have a wonderful evening. Just started tipping it down here in the Peak District, and I've not brought a coat. So anyway, that won't really bother any of you lot. In fact, some of you probably will think, yeah, serves you right. But anyway, thank you very much, DXW. Thank you very much, Richard. Thank you very much, Glenn. Thank you very much, Tony. Thank you very much, Isabel. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. I look forward to seeing you all, or some of you, tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye now.